So without further ado, I'm super excited to welcome our first speaker for today, which is Molly. Molly, welcome. And I'll let you get started with telling us about all the things happening in the PLN ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kartik. I'm super excited for this. And always super, super fun to get to hang out with all of these amazing humans hacking. And so let's just jump right into it. I have a lot of things to share with you today and many ideas for things that you can build. So hopefully get a little bit of inspiration. If you ever want to follow up on any of these or want to pitch me your idea and get feedback, feel free to message me on Twitter. I'm Momac28 and happy to keep chatting there. So here's quick agenda. Want to welcome you all back to HackFS. We might have a couple of returning hackers in the room, but we've had HackFS the last 4 years, which is going to be great. Give you an overview of Protocol Labs, PL Network, what kind of unites us as a community, all of the amazing folks that we're seeing participate here. Many of them are part of the PL Network and helping contribute various different protocols and features to this wider community. There's some recent awesome new opportunities that are in the works that would love to seed some of your ideas with, and then give you an overview of all of the different things you can build on. Kartik has already talked to you about the many, many, many different bounties here, but some ideas on how you could actually harness and build on top of some of these technologies. And then finally, if you want to learn more, I'll highlight some of the onboarding programming we've created in the PL network that might be useful. So of course, welcome back to the 4th HackFS. We've been running this since 2020. Yes, pandemic year, and seen hundreds of teams come forward, and a number of them actually turn into startups that have formed out of HackFS and are now coming back to sponsor full circle. So it's just really amazing to see the growth that has happened in this ecosystem, the amazing founders that have been created out of hacks that started here, and very excited to see what you guys come up with this year, so that hopefully our next huddle, next Lighthouse, next secured finance comes out of this group today, which will be really fun. The Protocol Labs network really is unified by this mission of driving breakthroughs in computing technology to push humanity forward. Juan gives a number of great talks about this, but really it's building upon the fact that we recognize the internet is a huge superpower for humanity. So many of our tools, communication, friendships, work has been massively changed by the advent of the internet, and it's critical for our functioning today as a species. And we see these huge phase transitions coming in the next couple of decades, and we want them to be building upon an internet foundation that is robust, that is secure, that doesn't have central intermediaries that control our connections between each other, and that enables efficient kind of like individual peer-to-peer interactions, ownership of data, and that is a good, robust foundation for all the work that we're doing. And we think that we need to be making improvements here. There's some really big breakthroughs that are coming in the next couple of years, machine learning, AGI, brain-computer interfaces, and we want those to build on top of like a much stronger, more robust foundation. And so Juan's given some great talks about how this really critical century, we need to be getting things right. We need to be upgrading some of our core internet protocols with Web3 to make sure that we can trust the data and the connections and the transactions that are happening in our networks, and that we can secure digital human rights that we can all build on top of. And so that's kind of why Protocol Labs was created as this innovation networks that has many different companies, many different protocols, and kind of this amazing swarm of improvements that can then empower the next set of computing breakthroughs to come with a better foundation for their information, for their peer-to-peer connections, and for their kind of like, trusted relationships with each other. And so Protocol Labs spans the R&D pipeline. There's a number of research labs across the Protocol Labs network, many groups deep in the development phases of building new products and new protocols. A number of those are productionizing and scaling to new markets, and even scaling significantly in production. And things that differentiate this community are a highly collaborative, network-oriented approach to many different protocols building on top of each other, layering as a stack to help make it easier for others to grab modular components that they can then build on top of. and just a very collaborative and supportive ecosystem. So we're excited to have you as a part of it. And feel free to ask for help, because everyone here very much wants to see you succeed and to jump into this ecosystem and start building something amazing. There are a ton of different groups across the PL network, many folks who are building on top of IPFS, Libp2P, and Filecoin, but also many, many other programs and projects that Kartik was mentioning, folks from Mona and DRAND and Bacalhau, and many other amazing components. And most of these projects are actually having bounties today at HackFS. And so if you want to go check out the PLN portal, which talks about many of these different projects, there's also links from the directory for how you can actually go and have office hours with some of these amazing collaborators, so that you can, get a deep dive on the work that they're doing, or get feedback on one of your hacks. And so recommend that's a super useful tool that you can grab a screenshot to. All right, diving into some of the breakthroughs. Here's a quick list that we keep in our PL Endres group on some of the amazing IPFS and Filecoin breakthroughs that we've been helping with and collaborating with folks on. FVM is definitely a big one in that list, but there's a number other really exciting ones. Bacalhau is super exciting. I would love to talk more about that one today. Saturn and Lassie, which is a component that's being used by Saturn as well, is really important for retrieving data very quickly from the Filecoin network, and also from, it's a CDN for any data that's stored across IPFS, Filecoin, or elsewhere. And there's some really amazing new components for IPFS. Boxo is a library for building new IPFS implementations. Helia is a new JavaScript implementation of IPFS. And so there's lots of exciting components to build on there. I'm going to give you a quick overview of maybe a couple areas that I think would be really exciting, and then we'll go through kind of a whole list of exciting things to build on. So a couple of very exciting areas in FVM. You might have heard FVM's been around for just over 2 months now. So it's still early in its early days, but we've already seen over 1,000 unique contracts be deployed on FVM. There's hundreds of people who are building smart contract applications, and some of my favorites that I think are filling really, really important needs within the Web3 ecosystem. First is perpetual or automatic storage. Lighthouse is offering a number of bounties here. They have great SDKs for building. NFT.storage and Web3.storage are also doing really useful work here. But making sure things that users want are being able to store their data and have another service or application handle the monitoring, the repair, the replication of that data on their behalf. And this is now possible with FVM. You can build all sorts of exciting services that can enable those use cases on top of the substrate of Filecoin, which is already doing kind of the automatic checking of, hey, is your storage deal being persisted over time? You can make it much more user-friendly and really help increase the accessibility of Filecoin services on other chains to different types of use cases. Things like NFT forever is absolutely, endowed storage use cases, makes a ton of sense. There's some really awesome work happening around retrieval CDNs on top of FVM. The Saturn team is now the rewards for retrieval providers within Saturn is now being paid out by FVM smart contracts. There's a number of groups who are doing things like retrieval insurance or contracts that ensure good retrievability of data. Super exciting area, super critical for all sorts of users who want hot, fast storage in Filecoin. There's some really exciting stuff happening with compute and generative AI. I literally was just playing around with Waterlily this morning because we just crossed an exabyte of data stored in Filecoin, and I was looking for what's my snazzy NFT that I'm going to mint to celebrate and commemorate that moment. And that's a great example that you can also emulate if you're going to create a compute over data network for your own use case, utilizing Bacalhau, utilizing FVM, and really optimizing those compute networks for your heart's desire, right? There's a lot of really great building blocks that you can use to get started really quickly there, and sample contracts like Waterlily that you could emulate to get started quickly. And then finally, there's some really amazing work that's happening around data DAOs, NFTs, anyone who's getting together to store data and persist data over time, utilizing maybe some of the perpetual storage contracts or retrieval assurance contracts. to make sure that, say the Gutenberg library or other really critical DeSci data sets are being kind of added to and governed over time, and utilizing NFTs within those communities. So I think I've hit on a couple of these, but there's a active need within the FVM ecosystem for some awesome new services and tools building on top of those FVM building blocks, and utilizing the fact that Filecoin has an exabyte of data stored, and want to be persisting that data over time, adding new data for those communities. And so thinking about the life cycle of clients and storage providers and data in Filecoin, there's a lot of really valuable services and tools that can be created and launched here, from monitoring a collection of data over time and creating kind of like alerts for different sorts of events, to repairing data if a storage provider ever stops storing data automatically based on a set of client policies or requirements, aggregating data across many different clients who all want to store, tiny little NFTs, but bundling that all up into kind of like a larger on-chain message, which is something that Lighthouse and NFT.storage have examples of how they're doing that right now. And some of the stuff around retrieval oracles or retrieval assurance contracts are all really, really useful and valuable tools that there's lots of demand for in the FVM ecosystem right now. And from clients, we have thousands of clients who are storing data in Filecoin as well and want better tooling to ease that onboarding. Data availability. So with some new really exciting things like Lassie and Saturn, and the Interplanetary Network Indexer, IPNI, there's now additional tools for making sure that your data is available and retrievable. And we've actually already been seeing smart contracts and chain data starting to be stored inside of Filecoin itself. So, it's now possible for you to use Filecoin to build a data availability layer for other Web3 blockchains or layer 2 chains that don't want to be responsible for their own data availability. So, a great example of where you could offer this is Solana is actually already backing up their entire chain state onto Filecoin as an IPLD acyclic graph. And so you could start with that to build a data availability layer for anyone who wants to interact with Solana, or you could use the opportunity to build a Web3 chain transaction storage service that, as blocks and transactions are created in another chain, stores those in Filecoin using whatever storage service of your choice, Web3 storage, Filecoin data tools, Lighthouse, etc., or one of your own creation, so that you have a really easy to use Web3 chain storage tool, which would be super valuable for the entire Web3 space. And even better, you can layer on these new tooling around fast retrieval to make sure that you store with storage providers who are offering fast retrievals. We have, I think, over 10 storage providers that have an over 100% retrieval success rate, which is pretty good. Well, not over 100%, at 100%. And a number of groups that are bringing additional, transports to storage as well. And so that's something that you can do on behalf of those networks to make sure that they can also retrieve the chain data very quickly, so that they can then rely on it and use it as kind of like the default way of accessing chain state and data. And you can augment this with all sorts of, shiny data features like erasure coding to make sure that you can get, a small number of copies in order to get the entire desired data set, retrieval bounties to make sure that you can really rely on the retrievals, etc. And this is a really, really hot and important area right now for the entire Web3 community. And Filecoin has all the things you need to be the team going and plugging that gap. We'd mentioned compute. It's a really exciting time to be building compute in the Filecoin ecosystem. You have Bacalhau, which is giving you all of these critical reusable modules for building compute networks. Think of it as the IPFS for compute networks. Open source, you can use it in whatever way you want. And you can use the Lilypad bridge or clone it in order to send jobs from FVM into your own Bacalhau-powered compute over data network. And then you can optimize it for your own domain. There's definitely this critical insight from Juan that In compute over data, we're going to see many, many different networks optimizing for privacy or performance or verifiability. And so identifying your own use case in your own community that you're going to optimize your compute network for, whether that's DeSci, generative AI, ZK proofs, fully homomorphic encryption, will allow you to really optimize your compute network and get it up and running quickly. You can also harness, maybe my next slide, well, maybe not. You can also harness the early stages of interplanetary consensus to have your network very quickly get up and running, building on top of Filecoin. So you can either utilize FVM itself, or you can start building directly on IPC to have your own layer 2 network on top of Filecoin, getting started quickly. All right, so highlighting all the things that you can build on, and then I will give you some fast learning tips and see you all on Twitter. So as we mentioned, Filecoin Virtual Machine is launched. It's all EVM compatible. There's a huge opportunity to be building within this new data economy. There's already an exabyte of data stored on Filecoin. A lot of that is open public access data, from video recordings to the open music library, Internet Archive, many open public data sets from various different government bodies, New York Public Data, things along those lines. And so it's a great opportunity to build the tools that these communities are going to need to interact with and continue onboarding their data more usefully. Bacalhau and Lilypad are perfect things to build on if you're excited about compute and the whole massive AI wave that is taking off, where you can actually run compute networks triggered by smart contracts in FVM, and harnessing Bacalhau to run all of those compute nodes. If you are an expert in thinking about how to incentivize computation and maybe do a useful proof of work around compute, please come talk to me. We definitely have ideas and would love to share. I mentioned interplanetary consensus. This is the kind of L2 sharding system that Filecoin has been developing. It allows you to create a hierarchical chain of compute, of layer 2 networks, or subnets, as we've been calling them. And we actually already have a 1-second test net subnet of IPC that is running right now that you can build your own subnet and get up and started. Or you can start utilizing SpaceNet, which is the net they have up and running. And the concept with these is that not only can you create subnets on subnets hierarchically, but you can actually also regionally define these networks. So you could end up with a North America versus Europe versus Asia subnet, or West Coast, East Coast, Texas, or whatever division of networks is going to enable you to have really fast block times and fast performance within these subnets. And that team is actively working with folks that are building new subnets today. As we've mentioned, IPFS has a ton of different implementations. I think there's specifically a bounty for Helia, which is the new JavaScript IPFS implementation, which has enabled the deprecation of the old JS IPFS. So huzzah. But there's also a ton of other ones. There's Iro, Kubo, Estuary Boost, and 20 plus other IPFS implementations that you can harness within your applications, or build upon or iterate upon in order to make them better. For libp2p, I highly recommend checking out this great video from Max from the IPFS thing on connecting everything everywhere all at once, and this new connectivity demo that they created. I think they'll be reprising it later in HackFS, but it enables you to do browser to browser peer-to-peer collaboration, browser to laptop to mobile phone, et cetera, all within the browser, all utilizing libp2p for that direct peer-to-peer networking communication. So very exciting. Definitely seems like a very exciting opportunity for folks that maybe want to think about service worker gateways, or better offline peer-to-peer collaboration within a variety of devices and modalities. And this seems very exciting to, for example, grab some old IPFS demos that have existed long before, port them into this new area, and then build on them. Things like, using a browser tab to share content peer-to-peer over IPFS, or things along those lines. There's some cool things with PeerPad that you might go in and look up from before and get running in these new applications. I'd mentioned Saturn and IPNI, but these are really useful tools for indexing and retrieving data quickly from both IPFS and Filecoin nodes. And so there's both Kubo and Lotus and Boost and other nodes. They're all IPFS nodes. But there's a very easy getting started guide to jump up and run with these networks if you want to enable fast retrievals. There's Polybase, which enables you to have this database layer that can understand wallets, tokens, and ZK proofs. You can absolutely utilize tooling like NFT.storage, Web3.storage, Filecoin data tools, and more as a fast storage on-ramp for whatever your use case of choice is. And you can even utilize the big data exchange if you're working with big data and big data communities to actually have a two-sided marketplace where you're both charging clients for the storage of their data and charging SPs for storage providers for access to those large, valuable public data sets. Of course, Huddle, also one of the sponsors of this event, but doing some awesome work with kind of like peer-to-peer media infrastructure and making sure that you can have great video communication. I think they also have some awesome integrations with Livepeer if you want to do live streaming within peer-to-peer video calls. And so some really useful tools if you're excited about having a video-centric application. For Livepeer, really useful focus around social networks and decentralized social. So thinking about Livepeer integrations into things like Blue Sky, or thinking about content moderation for how you can do decentralized video streaming or other decentralized social applications. And it's really awesome to see this like open social map continuing to get filled out. So if you're excited about potentially building social applications on top of Livepeer, Huddle, Filecoin, FVM, and maybe utilizing some of these retrieval tools, like, you're getting the components that you need to start making faster and faster social applications that can also handle, larger scale video storage, potentially like the YouTubes and Twitches of the world. It would be really cool to see someone go and build in that direction. And of course, Lighthouse, definitely a go-to tool if you're looking for really quick and easy perpetual file storage, and also a great exemplar to look at in terms of making sure that that is available across many different chains and bringing that ease of access to things like Polygon and elsewhere so that they can all store their data on Filecoin. And last but not least, check out Fission's Odd SDK. It's an amazing new SDK that you can utilize for local first edge computing. They also have some really, really useful combinations of things like UCAMs, DIDs, IPFS, and a great way with getting started building applications that are private and secure by default. All right. So if that didn't spark your interest and you're still like, I feel like there's 10,000 things I need to learn and I'm a little overwhelmed by the number of things being listed, I would love to recommend a couple of learning opportunities that might be relevant now, but might be relevant in the future once you've hacked your way through HackFS and want to dive even deeper into all that the PL network has to offer. We run an onboarding program for all members of the PL network. So anyone who's building amazing applications that push the space forward, has received investment from PL Ventures, or is an otherwise amazing proponent of this space, we offer a 4-week onboarding program to help train and develop and connect all of the amazing talent in this space so that you have mentors, you have access to critical stakeholders, and you have the knowledge you need to be really, really successful within this community. We actually have an open source curriculum, curriculum.pl-launchpad.io, I believe, that you can go and review even as you're getting started right now, if you find that useful. And definitely get in touch with me if you're excited to attend. We have I think it's $500 for attending the virtual program. And then if you want to attend our quarterly Launchpad Summit, we have those once every quarter in a different part of the world, which I'm getting ahead of myself. You should definitely come to those as well. We have content within Launchpad for all sorts of different contributors, whether that's builders who are wanting to make sure they have the hands-on hacking experience, product managers who want to understand how to get stuff done in an async remote distributed environment, folks who want to know the fundamentals of how all of the different protocols and dev tools within this space work, and how the Web3 landscape itself lines up, and then also how Web3 has evolved over time, and how you can harness the basics of blockchain, cryptography, decentralization, etc. And so our next Launchpad Summit, as I mentioned, is coming up next month in July 17th through 21st in Paris, over top of EthCC. We just published a blog post on this. So if you have attended Launchpad, we would love to see you there. If you are excited to learn more about it, you can kick off your Launchpad experience by attending the Launchpad Summit and then joining a future cohort later this year. And so you can grab the QR code here if you want to learn more about it. But I also hope to see many of the hackers there. It's going to be an amazing gathering point for the whole PL Network community and Web3 community. So that's it from me. Thank you so much. Happy building. Feel free to send me a DM with all of the cool things that you're building on. And I'm very, very excited to judge all of your amazing hacks in a couple of weeks. I cannot wait.